And Happy New Year to the podcast world out there. And to all the people watching on the Twitch chat who are not watching GDQ. And to Ross and Zeb. Happy New Year, gentlemen.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
2019. Woo.
We are here. We're here to talk Seahawks, even though our season is over. But we got a lot to talk about. But first of all, Merry belated Christmas and Happy New Year. I'm excited that we're back, even if it's going to only be for a couple of shows to end the year. But happy to be talking Seahawks again.
Yeah.
Of course.
Been weird. Weird couple of weeks, huh?
It is weird. I mean, so the last time that we talked, it was before the Kansas City game, and that game was amazing. And then you follow that up with a lackluster game against the Cardinals that you take with a field goal kick to win it down the stretch and make it to the playoffs. I think we were all talking before the game. I think we were all pretty excited. We all felt like this was a game that the Seahawks could win. I don't know if any of us would have said definitively that they'd win 100%, but I was feeling comfortable. I don't know what you guys were feeling before the game because we didn't have a podcast, but our conversations seemed to allude to that. I don't know if you want to chime in.
I was sure that it was going to end exactly how it did.
Of course you were. I was really confident the week into it, and then I think about 36 hours before the game, dread just came over me, and I got really nervous, and I felt like we were going to lose.
So what was your dread? Because I'm like Zeb, I was pretty confident. I wasn't saying like, oh yeah, 100% we're going to win. I thought it was like, we have a really good chance.
I just started looking more and more at the matchups, and it just didn't seem like a great matchup for us. And then the early season win over them meant literally nothing because both the teams are so different compared to then, and they seem to be on fire still, like, despite being shut out once. I don't know, like the previous week really kind of probably did it for me. Like I started to feel like we might have sort of like ran out of gas. We were sort of playing with house money, and maybe it was just time. It was just our time. Like it just didn't feel right. I don't know. It wasn't like one particular thing where I was like, well, our offensive line just can't do this or that, because I wasn't even sure who was going to play. But it just didn't. They just seemed. I mean, like yeah. Out of the points in, they just seem to be a better team this year, on the field.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, and I think that's totally justified. All those things that you said, Ross, those are things that I think any reasonable person that tried to look at the game as objectively as possible would definitely take that in consideration. Shout out to Palmery Productions, to Birdfinger Ader, and to Boy X Scout for chiming in on the Twitch chat live. Gentlemen, thank you very much. For two of them, I know you dudes, so
with us.
I don't know if the other person is not, but for the two people that I know are definitely dudes, gentlemen, thank you for joining us, and for everyone else. Boy X Scout says he had no confidence going into the game, and I definitely think that the way that the Arizona game ended, I could see that a lot of people would kind of be leading into that game saying like, man, if that's the way we're going to end the season, I have concerns. And I kind of felt like because we played with such a bad offensive line, that really did us in, and I think that's what carried over into the Dallas game. We definitely weren't healthy up front, and I think that was the biggest impact to our production, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's kind of like the way that I looked at it, trying to take a few steps back.
Well, I also felt like our defense, they started out the year really pretty good, and we were excited, and there was multiple interceptions in multiple games early on, and then Earl gets hurt, and T2 takes over and was fine at first, but I had said this to you or somebody offline, obviously. When Delano Hill got hurt, I kind of like early in the season, or even during training camp, I liked the combination of T2 at free safety and McDougal at strong safety. Later in the season, though, like when there was a game where Delano Hill started, and it looked, I started like the opposite. I felt like McDougal at free safety and Hill at strong safety was our better setup. Then Hill got mysteriously hurt with a mysterious cracked hip right out of nowhere. And that sort of filled me with dread because we hadn't stopped the run effectively in weeks, and we weren't getting a lot of real even the picks we were getting were kind of the fluky ones, like the one we got in the game. I mean, that wasn't just like a, hey, you've got that dude covered and the ball's in the air and you jump up and you just take it from him, kind of Richard Sherman-esque kind of interception. It was like I've got it covered and I'm going to juggle and I came down with it. But, if you run that play 10 times, it doesn't end up like that.
Right.
So I think our defense sort of had run out of gas and run out of big plays.
I think there's definitely an aspect that the defense was let down. To talk about one of our topics earlier, I think what really let the game down was the defense. I put it up on Twitter that I give a 50% blame going to execution. So just the way that we played and the things that they were trying to do, they failed at. Then I split 20-20 between the defensive and the play calling. I'd probably change that a little bit and probably go like 25% defense, 15% play calling, and then the last 10% I would say is coaching, because I felt that they didn't make the correct adjustments. I'm not going to say it's just everything, but that's kind of the way that I felt looking at the game, 20 miles away now. But I think to your point, Ross, I think the defense definitely was gassed. I mean, these are guys that had, for the most part, none of them have ever played full 16-game NFL games before, and this is kind of what you see. Like, this is the biggest jump that college players have to make going to the pros. There's not 3 to 4 bye weeks that you have through the course of your college season. In the NFL, it's just 1 week, and even if you're not 100%, you're still practicing, you're still doing all these things. It's a job, and I think that this young team saw it kind of catch up to him. So I do think that's a really valid point.
Yeah, I don't know. It was. How did you see it, Zeb?
I think your take on the team kind of running out of gas seems the most accurate. I think that that the win over Kansas City was such a high that maybe it was just that was about all they had. Sorry, I'm a little foggy on Dayquil right now. Trying to keep track of exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, I don't know. I think ultimately things kind of ended the way most of us expected it to. Like we thought, or maybe halfway through the season, we thought we had a shot at the playoffs, but I don't think we really ever thought that this team was poised to make a run. So disappointing, yes, but not necessarily unexpected.
I mean, there were signs they have, maybe they're more like signs for next season. There were signs that I thought, like, hey, they really could be a team that kind of goes somewhere in the playoffs. When they were playing their peak and they're playing their best, but I don't think they're playing their best at the end of the season. Like, we may have peaked a couple weeks too early as well, right?
Right, exactly.
Which is not surprising when they win 6 out of their last 8 games.
Yeah.
They have 2 tough games down the stretch. One you definitely should have won, and another one that's just a tough loss.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Like, that made me a little nervous too. Like, we lost to San Francisco. What? We lost to San Francisco. Came back and did our job against Kansas City, but then looked against the Cardinals, and it just didn't. That high of the Chiefs game is really easy to remember, but it was sandwiched by 2 really subpar performances that realistically, that happened. That was real. That was the same team.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know.
Boy X Scout on Twitch chat says, didn't it feel like the mental attitude just coming from an outside observer, like the team didn't project their fire to win that game? I think there's something to be said about that, but I kind of feel as if personally the reason why they didn't have that fire, why they couldn't play their game, was because they just weren't 100%. They were that mental capacity. They were down. They were dragged. They were tired. They're beat up. Because we were healthy for like half of the season. In the last, from the if the season were stretched into 5 parts, from the 3rd and 4th part we were super healthy. In that last 5th, we got kind of eaten up and people started falling off. That was like a big impact. Palm Production says defense can only do so much when your offense is so static, not to mention when your killer kicker goes down and your punter can't make a field goal for 5 yards. yeah, it's one of those things I don't think you can really account for. But let's jump into our topic. So the Seahawks see their season end in Dallas. The year ends with a wild card playoff game, but lots of emotions raging on how that last game should have played out. We look back at the 2018 year, how to summarize it. This is the Seahawks FanTable Podcast, brought to you by Hawkscast Forum. I am Sam. There's Evan Ross, and we're going to jump into topic number one. So, Ross, I'm going to get you off with this one because I know this is something that I know you're going to have some good thoughts about. And did the Seahawks philosophy catch up with them in the end?
I know that's the popular take, and people think they should have switched over to the. Well, I see different people saying different things. Some people think they should have just gone pass heavy early because that was working, and some people think sprinkle in a few more passes here and there. And I don't know. I think some of us would be surprised if you look at the play. Some of the plays calling. There wasn't a lot of just run pass. There actually wasn't. I don't know. You dance with the girl you brought to the prom, right? That's what got you there. That's what you got to go with. I think it's really weird to suddenly expect them to suddenly change, and it's also very, very, in my opinion, very much hindsight. Oh, now you know it didn't work. Well, yeah, but second half especially when they put Penny in. Penny ran that big run. I'm sure lots of the people at the time were already saying, hey, this should be a pass. But then Penny breaks off a 28-yarder. And there's been so many games this season where first, second, even third quarter, the run game wasn't really there. But by the fourth quarter, it is. And we know the Seahawks play for the fourth. We were always super happy about that normally because it works out. We're always chanting ourselves, can you win in the first quarter? We copied the chant. Can you win in the second quarter? You can win in the fourth quarter. So you're running the ball, and you're running against the brick wall a lot. But you're kind of thinking, by the fourth quarter, what normally happens is that wall breaks down. And by the fourth quarter, Carson's going to be breaking off 10 and 15 yarders consistently. And in the meantime, we've shortened the game so they don't get to do what they want to do. Unfortunately, you miss a couple of passes early on. A couple of runs don't go well. You don't execute the runs you do have, and all of a sudden you don't get drives and you don't get as many plays, and all of a sudden it all kind of falls apart. But you know what? Still, we had a fourth quarter lead. We were 14-10. We had it. It was there. It was theirs to take. And yeah, I guess that you can't put it all on the defense because the offense is a whole other thing. But the offense hands you a lead, and the defense gives up 2 long drives, and special teams gives up a short field touchdown. So, there's 3 scores, but, it has nothing to do with the offense. I don't know. I would have preferred to see a few more interesting runs. I don't know why we wanted to keep, especially hearing afterwards that Sweezy didn't, Sweezy's playing with a broken bone.
Yeah.
So maybe he shouldn't be in there at all. And if he is, maybe don't keep running behind him. And we've got J.D. McKissick. I tweeted out this week, hey, you know what? There's a pretty good weapon. He could do a lot of things. I haven't used him hardly at all this season. I was waiting for him to be the secret weapon maybe. It's playoff time, win or go home, but they didn't use that. I would have switched to Penny early on just because of how the matchup was working.
That's the one thing that I look at as the loss, which is not going to Penny early in the game. Now, granted, in the second half, they didn't play terribly. They missed a field goal, but I just want to point, I 100% agree with you, Ross, that I think that Penny should have gotten more snaps because he has better burst than Carson. And I think that would have helped. I would have helped if they were going to continue to run, switch up the running backs. Don't stick with Carson 100%.
At least try it earlier. That's why you have two main running backs who are both capable of carrying the load, right?
Right.
So if one's not feeling it, maybe it's just a bad matchup, or maybe he's just having a bad day or whatever. Then give the other guy a shot kind of early on before you get to the point where Carson's run 13 times for 20 yards. Maybe at 10 carries for 19 yards, you go, we're going to give Penny a couple series.
Right.
Not a couple series. Give him a couple series and see if that loosens things up. And by the way, maybe because it's the playoffs, just once to freak him out, put them both out there. And then, or I would have wanted, they ran some finally really late, but I would have run some more read options with Wilson and and encouraging him to maybe keep it. Because even back in their prime, like Lynch days, they did the math. They remember that argument. Does Lynch help Russell or does Russell help Lynch as far as the running game goes? And that was kind of a both. Because you have to respect Russell running it, that kind of opened up and gave Lynch an extra half yard per carry.
Yeah.
So some more of that I thought would have been cool. Again, like maybe, that's not something you do in the fourth game of the season anymore with Russ, but it's the playoffs. The rules should have been a little bit different.
Zeb, in the playoffs, did the philosophy fail us? There's also a bunch of great comments in the chat that I'm going to read out, but Zeb, did the philosophy catch up with the Seahawks in that game?
I mean, I think in a sense it did, yeah. But, I think the same could be said for a lot of the losses this season. Like, we played Seahawks football, and that is this year, committing to the run, relying on a few splash plays here, big pass plays for touchdowns. Like that's how we've played. That's how we've scored this year. And we did what we do, which is try to win the game at the end of it. And we just fell short. And we lost by 2 points. We missed a field goal. And we played, I don't remember exactly when Janikowski got hurt, but we played most of the second half for the rest of the game, understanding that we can't rely on being able to kick field goals, which I'm sure played into a little bit, at least, the play selection and the way they played the game at that point. So, we win the game in the fourth quarter. We fell short. Clearly, that philosophy failed us in this particular game, and it has before. It's not something that's never happened. I will say that going into this game, remember back in 2013 how that whole offseason leading into the season, it was like you just knew that this team was going to the Super Bowl and they were going to win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff coming from the team via social media and guys' attitudes and stuff that felt like that to me. This is kind of off topic, but I started to believe, even though I felt like maybe the matchup with Dallas wasn't very good and that they probably had a better chance to win this game, I started to believe, get that feeling of destiny back again. So hopefully, going into next season, we have a lot of good pieces in place. We're not missing a lot of things. Hopefully they can build off that and just take the momentum and the spirit and the high energy of this young team and just build off it and maybe take it to that next level next year.
I totally get that. I started to sort of believe our press clippings too, right?
Yeah.
When this national media started saying stuff like, nobody wants to play Seattle in January, I was like, yeah!
Exactly.
You don't want to play us.
Yeah. Real quick, off the Twitch chat, Boy Scout and Palmy Productions basically both agree that even if this team had won the game against Dallas, they wouldn't have been a good shot, and they would end up playing. They would have played the Rams because the Eagles ended up winning. So I would have liked our odds a little bit, probably better against the Rams than I would have the Saints. But yeah, it's tough, and I think to the point that both of you said is this is the team, this is the Seahawks style that they wanted to play with, and there were so many things that I think they played on this really, really fine edge. I mean, anyone that I've talked to, they had a chance to limit the Cowboys to a field goal. It would have been a one-score game. The Seahawks would have been down 6 points with 3 minutes left. It's 3rd and 14. They're in the red zone. You just need one more stop. You've stopped them essentially 2 other times on that same drive, but they got bailed out by, defensive pass interference plays. I would, if you were to tell me, hey, the Seahawks are going to be down 3 points, Cowboys are going to be 3rd and 13 in the red zone, they're most likely going to have to kick it because it's a long down distance, there's 3 minutes left, if they hold them to a field goal, would you feel comfortable with Russell Wilson leading a touchdown? And I'm like, yes, 100%. That's Seahawks football, that's their philosophy, that's what Pete Carroll wants to do. I know a lot of people want to give maybe Brian Schottenheimer a hard time, but this is the Seattle offense. This is what Pete Carroll wants his team to do, and they're not really going to shy away from that. Birdfinger points out, because I think this is a great point, what Pete Carroll said after the game was, or after the Carolina game, where they couldn't get the running established and they relied a lot more on Russell Wilson. This is what Pete said. On a day where we couldn't run the ball like we had been, Russ came through and had a great throwing day. And that's probably the thing that I have the hardest time trying to reconcile, because you guys both know that I'm a big believer in extending Russell. Obviously, I'm not saying like give him the franchise, but he should be paid as a top-tier quarterback. Definitely in the top 10, whatever that number fluctuates to be. But I have a problem when the team doesn't trust him to throw the ball. And maybe they're saying like, look, this is such a close game. Seahawks brand of football means we can't have you just chuck it up. And I'm not saying like throw 50 times a game, but if you give him 5 more plays where the ball is completely in his hands, or you give him the option to run, or you're giving him all these opportunities, maybe he can pull more magic. And it's not us talking about a 2-point game that we can't get, but maybe it's a game where, hey, you know, we're gonna score some more points. So I have a hard time with that.
How many times did Russell Wilson throw this game?
I want to say 29, 30.
Well, he threw 27.
Okay.
27.
Okay, but how many rushes did we have? Running backs.
Let's see. How many rushes?
21.
21 rushes by the team.
By running backs, yeah.
And Russell Wilson ran 3 times. One of those was designed. So he had 29 passing plays versus 22. I mean, that's 60% pass. I mean, do you want more passing than that? I mean, do we really think the Seahawks win a lot when they throw the ball 65%, 70%?
I'm not of that mindset. I was just talking more, not just like in general. Like if you're going to pay the quarterback a huge amount of money,
I get it. I'm not really attacking you for it. I'm just to the point that people keep saying like, why didn't they go more pass heavy? Why didn't they go pass heavy? They did go pass heavy essentially. They didn't run the ball 20 times for a 1-yard average. They ran it 13 times with Carson.
Right.
13. I mean, they threw the ball 27 times. 2 other pass plays he took off. That's 29 pass plays. That's still not a lot, but they didn't have the ball. And that's, I think, to Pete Carroll's point. You didn't have the first down until halfway through the second quarter. So you don't get that many plays, right? That means you had 3 drives of 3 plays each. That's 9 plays.
Well, the thing that I found to be most surprising, I was watching this with my buddy, and maybe we're bad luck, because the last 2 games that I've watched at his house, they've lost, so maybe...
Well, stop doing that.
I'm going to invite him to my house. So, Dustin, heads up, you're only getting invited to my house next season. But the thing that I found to be most surprising was the fact that Dallas did not run the ball a lot. I felt like they should have been running the ball like 60% of the game, and it would have been like game over for them. So every time they had like a 3-and-out or Dak Prescott threw it twice, I'm like, that was a wasted opportunity. They had a 3rd-and-1 where Zeke got stuffed, and then on the second time they went 3rd-and-1, they went to a passing play. On the third time, and these are all like in the end of the game, when it was 3rd and short, we lost contain and Zeke ran for 41 yards, and that was the time that he had really like blown up the running game. Before it was limited to everything under like 8 to 9 yards, which is, you know, for that defense, the way the running game had played was, you know, not so bad. But then it just kind of like opened the floodgates, and that's why
you take out that,
you know,
I was gonna say, even if you take out his, still almost had 100 yards.
No, I think he had like 160. I mean, Zeke, like, and what I want to say to the Cowboys is they had a good game. You know, I thought they played super conservatively. I thought they played more conservatively as the home team with a better running attack and better offensive line than Seattle did. And I am kind of confused that they could have probably blown us out if they had run the ball more. But they chose not to, so they made it.
I 100% would agree with you, because like we talked about how close the game was, but I actually felt a couple times during the game that we were still in it because Dallas was making weird choices.
Yeah, like the fact that they went for that 58-yard field goal at the like minute left in the first half. I mean, you make that, it's a 7-point game, but if you miss that, you're giving Russell Wilson, Sebastian Janikowski, who ends up almost, you know, kicking his leg off his body, a short field, and surprisingly, they were able to get a chance to kick a 57-yarder, which Sebastian Janikowski has kicked before. So you turn it from a 10-6 game to a 10-9 game. I kind of felt that was a really, really bad decision. It was like the one time that the announcers were critical of what the Cowboys did.
Yeah, I mean, you referenced like a 3rd and 1 where they threw the ball. Like, dude, we're not stopping you running the ball at all, except for once maybe. But I mean, like, I don't know. They made some weird choices. I saw people say like Pete Carroll got out coached, and like, yeah, maybe you can disagree with some of the choices, and maybe the running plays were very creative. We were not out coached. Like Jason Garrett made weird choices all game long.
It was a 1-score game with 3 minutes to go. I don't know how anyone could say that someone was out coached. Maybe you feel like your team was better and you should have put up more points, but yeah, I don't see Pete Carroll being out coached. I think he made some poor decisions and didn't commit to certain things. Yeah, I mean, Boy XC even agrees. Like, saying he's out coached is a bit extreme. You could say that he had a bad game and they executed poorly. I think that's 100%. Because even Pete Carroll came out after the games and we should have maybe done a little bit differently. But when you look at the numbers, they don't really like show that. Like to your point, Ross, like if you look at the run to pass ratio, it was skewed towards the pass, and it wasn't just the last drive that made that. I mean, Pete Carroll mentioned on that scoring drive with Russell Wilson where he ran it in, they ran the ball 8 times. They passed the ball once, and they scored. I mean, one of the passing plays was for 22 yards to Doug Baldwin, but they scored a touchdown by running the ball still. So,
and people like point out that well, that's the point. Like the one big play on that drive is the pass, but are the pass plays going to work out that way if you're throwing even more? Are there not going to be more sacks? Is there not going to be a tip and an interception? I mean, like the odds of a turnover on a pass play are much higher. Like we've seen Russell have a little bit of ball security issues, right? Being tackled in the pocket and giving up a fumble. If we had lost even one possession that game, it was going to be over for us.
I kind of felt, and we'll move on after this, and I'll let you get a chance, you and Zed. I kind of felt when we got that interception by KJ, which was a ridiculous interception, I thought that was the turning point. I thought that was the chance where Seahawks are going to run the ball, they're going to really take over, and they have 2 back-to-back boneheaded penalties. One I thought was ticky-tacky. I didn't really see a hold on Britt, and then the other one was just a stupid, like, you got chippy with someone and got caught for pushing them well after the play. I mean, you were so far deep in your own part of the field that it was like a minimal, but it ended up being like, instead of it being 2nd and short, it ended up being 1st and long and then 2nd and longer. So that's why I say execution was like 50% of who I would place blame on.
Do you think the decision to start Sweezy part of it?
I think it was the fact that they didn't like what it looked like when Fant was right tackle and Fant was the right tackle and Ifedi was the right guard. I
agree. That was an awful combination, but it just feels like we need more depth at left guard.
And I think that's what's going to go into this offseason. I know a lot of people want to sign Fluker and bring back Sweezy and are excited about Jordan Simmons, but we don't have the appropriate depth, and I think that's maybe the one knock against both Sweezy and Fluker is what's their durability going to look like. And for Sweezy, he's a little bit older of a guy. For Fluker, he just has a little bit of injury. Thug Muffin 1234, what's up? For chiming in the Twitch chat. Final thoughts about the philosophy of the Seahawks.
I'm all in still, man. I dig it. The other like the cliche. The other team gets paid too.
Yep. Exactly. Cowboys played a good game on defense in particular.
Yeah.
They kept our running game in check. And hats off to them for that. You can't it's not just about you doing everything right. The other team's trying to stop you, So it happens sometimes.
My final thoughts, if that were at a neutral field or if that was in Seattle, I think we would have won that game by a big touchdown.
And that's kind of the lesson. That was the lesson when the year we lost to the Falcons and the next year we did the Super Bowl. I was like, it's home field. We got to have home field.
Yeah, I mean, to this point, Russ was 3-0 in the wild card, so it's not like they can't pull it out, but it's definitely a lot harder.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on to topic number 2. Topic number 2, it's award season, guys. So that means we are handing out awards. Zeb, if you were to hand out 2 awards, you can go 3 if you like. If you were to hand out an award, what award are you handing out to the Seattle team?
Just any award to,
you can
to
give
the
them
guys on our
best sound editing. You can give them best R&B album. You can give them best of viral video. What award would you give out to this team?
Okay, well, along those lines, definitely best celebrations, group celebrations.
Hands down, for sure. I was kind of
they pulled out some real
disappointed
doozies.
that the wide receivers didn't have very any celebrations down the stretch.
Yeah, it's almost like they said, you know what? This last few games, let's focus on football and not on how we're going to dance after we score.
Lost opportunity, but good award. Good award.
If it was up to me, I would make Pete Carroll the coach of the year. If I could hand out that award, I would.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I guess if we can just Trey Flowers gets something, surprise, wonderful rookie of the year,
Best draft pick.
Yeah, well done. Like, good job, young man.
Would you
Proud of
say
you.
Trey Flowers best draft pick?
I don't remember who else we drafted, but so yeah.
Well, they got Michael Dixon, Rashard Penny,
Then no.
Will Disley.
I actually like our draft quite a bit. I think there's a lot of potential long-term solutions there.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
One more award. What are you giving out, Zeb? Best R&B album.
Did somebody do one?
No, I'm just
Whoever did one gets that award for sure.
Potential. Who would have won it on potential?
Oh well, Russell. After the way he was singing "This Little Light of Mine."
That's probably best soul, best gospel. But yeah, I would say Russell is in contention for that.
Well, I mean, he can cross over.
Crossover gospel R&B. Oh man,
I bet McKissick's a good rapper. I just have a feeling about him.
You call him JD, he calls himself DJ.
Yeah.
Ross, what about you? What awards are you handing out to the Seahawks this year?
Most improved, I'm giving Jared Reed. Holy crap. That dude went from like serviceable to like a star. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a great season.
That dude made himself some money. I'm going to go with a very conventional category, Offensive Player of the Year. And I'm not giving it to Russell. I'm giving it to Tyler Lockett.
I think that's fair. 158.3 perfect rating with Russell. Yeah.
Yep.
You guys mentioned I would have given my Rookie of the Year to... It's close, but I think I want to give it to Trey Flowers. Because Michael Dixon, I mean, he did a lot. But he did have a few things that like hurt us as well, right? He had a few mess-ups.
Yep.
Well, like badly timed short punts and teasing us with the fact that he can do... I mean... Finally had to look it up and why I can't do it. We kept thinking he was going to do some drop kicks this year, and then I mentioned, I think, to you guys in chat, I was like, maybe it's the angle. So I went and looked it up and like, yeah, like to do a drop kick, it's got to be like the field's got to, I don't think they'll overdo it because you need this weird angle. I don't know how they used to do it in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, you must be able to do one because Doug Flutie did one. So,
yeah,
Doug
plus he had the worst onside kick of all time.
Oh man.
I'm not going to fault him for that one because, like, even though apparently he's practiced it, but like you don't go into the game thinking you're going to have to do that. You just assume like if we do that, the kicker's going to do that, and all of a sudden here you go. And the rule changes make it very difficult. But yeah, I mean, like it was the worst one. I mean, if you're going to kick it like that, as somebody else said somewhere, like you may as well just have George Fant. I mean, like there could not possibly be a worse situation. You kick it to like their best catcher at a depth none of our guys can get. Yeah. Last real quick award was my what could have been award is to Will Disley.
Mm-hmm.
It's like what I mean. Even this last game, if there was like a really good tight end they had to cover over the middle, how much more would that have opened a few things up? I don't know. We'll see next year. Hopefully.
Yeah. Real quick from the Twitch chat, Birdfinger says best hand goes to Tyler Lockett. Paul Palmy Production doesn't agree with Flowers getting the Rookie of the Year. Boy X Scout says Tyler Lockett wins Mr. Dependable. He also agrees what the fuck was going on with that outside kick. And Palmy Production says that Lockett needs more credit across the NFL. The legit award that I'm going to give out is Coach of the Year. I do think Pete Carroll, if he doesn't win it, he should get heavy consideration based upon the fact that they lost 6 Pro Bowlers off of their team in the course of the offseason and during the season. And they lost a lot of them for a majority of the year. Errol Thomas and KJ Wright, both Pro Bowlers, both played very, very limited number of games. And then you add all the other defensive guys that they lost. And even Jimmy Graham, who played terribly in Green Bay, that's still won. Boy X Scout commenting on Matt Nagy getting consideration for the Coach of the Year. I would say, though, the difference about why I wouldn't give Matt Nagy or Chicago Coach of the Year is because you shouldn't win the award for having zero expectations and surprising people. Because that's the way the NFL is built. You're playing a worse schedule than everyone else. You played against a garbage NFC North, and you got bounced in the first round, and you were the 3rd seed. So you can't take the playoffs into consideration. But looking at it as a whole, I don't think that's enough to warrant a Coach of the Year. I know that's traditionally what the award goes to, but I'm just kind of against it. And
would we not have expected more from the Bears if we knew they were going to trade for Mac right before the season started?
Yeah, and I mean that's another huge thing. That has nothing to do with the coaching. Throwing considered out there, Boy X Scout, means that you want us to talk about it. So I'm just telling you my thoughts. So that's my thought about a legit award. My most unsung, I think it's going to go to Dwayne Brown. Dwayne Brown quietly had a great year at left tackle. Obviously, he played every game. He started every game. He didn't miss. I don't think he missed a snap. So I want to give a big shout out to Dwayne Brown. Second team All-Pro. He's alternate for the Pro Bowl, which doesn't make sense. Congratulations to Russell Wilson getting into the Pro Bowl because Aaron Rodgers, who shouldn't have been there at all, is injured and can't come in. So congratulations to them.
He's injured.
Yeah, quote unquote injured. But one award that I want to give out, and we talked about this, is Mr. Hopeful. So I want to talk about a player that I have high hopes for next year, and that is Shaquem Griffin. We were really excited about him. Obviously, it's a great story about him playing with his brother, playing with the disability, playing with the physical disability. Just great story, great person, great everything about him. I am hopeful that he will be able to make an impact next year, because I think his skill set, what he was able to do in college football, translates really well. I think what he has to learn is the speed. It's, the assignment, because that's one of the areas that I think the Seahawks really need to work on is that linebacker core. It can't just be Bobby and a stitched together KJ Wright. They do need some help. I was really disappointed in Barkevious Mingo because I thought he played really great, and then kind of fell off at the last 3 quarters of the season. Mike Kendricks, who I thought played great when he wasn't suspended, only to come back into one game and get IR'd the very next day. So those are my awards. There's probably a lot more that we can give out, but I feel that's a pretty good list, right?
Yeah. Maybe an honorable mention to Chris Carson, first 1,000-yard rusher we've had since Beast. Yeah. Just being a workhorse and staying in there and being tough. Looked like he got dinged up here and there, and just kept playing. So appreciate that.
I think that's 100%. Mr. Appreciated should definitely go to Chris Carson.
Should we do one negative award?
We want to give a negative award? All right, let's give some raspberries out.
Should we negative? Should we
negativity?
Should we go, most disappointing player of the year?
Most disappointing play or player?
Player. That's got to be Shaquille, right?
Sorry. I don't think so.
I have a hard time with that. I see where you're coming from, Ross. I wouldn't go there, but tell me why you think Shaquille would be your.
So last year he had a really solid rookie season, and then the coaches felt he was good enough to move him over. And then, that's a hard transition. I don't think people understand. particularly with the Seahawks like scissor step, technique you're using at the beginning. It's a hard technique to adjust. Now you have to do everything sort of like a mirror of what you were doing, but the coaches felt it was good enough to move him over there, and so you kind of figured like left cornerback was not on lock. I didn't think it was suddenly going to be a shutdown corner, but I didn't think he was going to start giving up essentially everything. And I thought by this year his ball skills would come around, but that dude's got no ball skills. Like, he doesn't play the ball at all. He stays close to his guy, so hopefully the quarterback doesn't throw at the guy because he doesn't look open.
He's no Kelly Jennings, but I see where you're coming from.
But if the quarterback does throw the ball, like, essentially the guy's wide open because he doesn't intercept it, he doesn't swat it away, he's just hanging out near the dude. And he gives up. He did not have a good, especially second half of the season. He had I think actually next year we may see Trey Flowers back on the left side. And they're going to have to draft a cornerback because I think Griffin may end up being sort of depth or like the number 3 cornerback eventually, sadly.
Wow, that's pretty steep.
I know, but look at it. Go watch the last 4 games again. Just watch his plays.
Well, I've seen him play well. I've seen him play the ball. I think to your point in that game against Dallas, the way that he gave up the fade, I thought that was really bad. Like, he didn't play the ball. He should have played the receiver and should have been looking back. Instead, he's just flailing out there, which is the worst thing to do on a short field.
Nobody's afraid of throwing at him.
Yeah,
it's not good.
Zeb, what Raspberry Award are you giving out to close us out?
I don't know. I'm not particularly disappointed in anybody. I would have liked to have seen Penny show a little more towards the end of the season. I know he did improve and did show more, but I still feel like he's running very indecisively, and he needs to learn to kind of make a decision and hit that hole and just and I don't know. It feels like he has that next gear.
Yeah,
I don't know if we've seen him actually turn it on, so maybe he doesn't have it. I don't know. I thought he did all right for a rookie season, but I would have liked to have seen more out of him.
He's a first-round running back. First-round running backs you expect are going to have some more impact, don't you?
Yeah. Well, Sonny Michel didn't have a great year either from New England, but I think it's a fair point.
But that was like an injury thing, I think. He had lots of 100-yard games down the stretch.
But he was
starting to look good.
It's all based upon where you get drafted, the expectation of that production. The fact that Chris Carson's 7th rounder, this is like amazing. But if Chris Carson were first rounder, it'd be like, meh,
Right.
So my award, my Raspberry Award is going to be, this is the award. Well, what do you think was going to happen? And that goes to Sebastian Janikowski.
There you go.
As good of a year as he had, because he did have a good year. What do you think is going to happen totting out a 75-year-old kicker that, plays beer softball during the course of the week? I'm happy for what he is. I don't think he's going to play in the NFL again, but I'm not surprised with what we ended up getting, and the fact that he throws out his hamstring on that last kick attempt is just really bad.
Time to hang him up.
Yeah, for sure.
He's not coming back. I mean,
yeah, I don't know how he comes back from that. And if he does, congratulations to whatever team takes him.
Why would he?
Isn't the kicker that we cut for him like a Pro Bowler now?
Yeah, Jason Myers, Pro Bowler for the Jets. Kind of a dick move, Jason Myers. Wow. Like, he should have.
I think more than anything, that's what I want to see us do is find a good, young, reliable kicker.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to
hashtag goals.
Yeah.
All right, topic number 3. So Ross, use the franchise tag. Is this something that we should expect the Seahawks to use with Frank Clark this offseason?
Oh gosh, man, do I have to go first? I don't know. Because I don't know what he wants. Obviously, this is the number one thing I was wrong on this year. Because I was saying in August, like, I think he's part of that old gang, and I don't think he's going to turn the corner. I don't think he's going to be all in on team, and I was so wrong on everything, and I'm sorry. You're all right in my book, Frank. So what's it going to take to keep you? I mean, if you got it, you got it. Franchise tag cost on a defensive end right now. It's probably a pretty penny. But I don't really. I mean, we're drafted 21st. You're not going to be able to replace him. Well, you look at the market. If there's a weird market situation where a couple like kind of ends or I don't know.
I think there are. I think the market for ends this offseason is going to be pretty good.
So I mean, like that's got it. I mean, you guys know me. I'm the jerk because I'm super business-like when it comes to the decision. Like Frank Clark deserved to stay now, right? But it's always a business, and it's always a salary cap situation. I don't know how much I want to. I mean, you got to have pressure. You have to have pressure. In fact, I want to keep him and get one more. But it's all about the market. How much does he want? Who else is available? Because the franchise tag, that means he's going to be. What is it? It's the average of the other top five, and that's including people like Aaron Donald. So you're paying him a lot, then.
Actually, defensive tackles are not considered part of that. So is Aaron Donald the defensive end, or is he a tackle?
Oh, you're right. But it's going to be
tackle.
It's going to be. So who are the top five defensive ends?
Well, last year the franchise tag for a defensive end was $17.1 million. Second highest
so
tag.
It's going to be okay.
So it's going to be about 18 to 19, probably closer to 19.
So that means to sign him, it's not going to be anything really different from that. Because otherwise, why would he do it? If he's learned anything from the Kirk Cousins saga, that's the one thing. Like Kirk Cousins is such a better businessman than he is a quarterback. He actually is the first person to realize it's the franchise tag can be. You can judo that shit and use it against your team, and leverage a huge amount of money. He's the first player to play that smart.
I think if you're a quarterback, 100%. If you're another quarterback, another position, it's a lot tougher. But I think the point stands.
Defensive end, I don't think it's that different, really.
I think defensive end has a closer equation because they're the second highest tier for tags, but it's only for a few of those positions. But
I mean, because if you tag him this year, say it'd be 17, so go up slightly. Say 17.5. To do it 2 years in a row, which you theoretically can, the next year it has to be. What's the rule again?
It's the third year. So if you tag someone the first time, it's top 5 in the position. Right. Second year, it's 100. It's 20% higher, or the top 5, whichever is greater.
Right.
And then the third year, it's top 5 regardless of position.
Right. So there's no reason for him to accept anything less than something like an average of $18 million a year. So if you only want him for a year and you hope you find somebody else in the meantime, I guess you franchise him. If not, you hope that you can get, you have that Avril Bennett kind of year where you find two other players. Because I think we agree, even with Jared Reed emerging, you need one more pressure on the outside. Unless you think Brandon Jacobs is going to emerge more.
Jacob Martin,
sorry. Unless you think Jacob Martin's going to emerge even further, because he started coming around late in the season, right?
I still think you need another one, but your point does still stand.
So it's not. I can't answer. I don't have enough information today. I think you definitely have to consider it because I think you want to keep him around. And I was super wrong on him. He's all in, and he's a team player, and he's definitely deserved the right to stay if the economics make sense, for sure. I love him now. I'm all on board.
Zeb, what are you doing with this Monopoly money? Are you just giving it out like candy? What do you think we use with the franchise tag?
I'm just making it rain in the locker room.
Woo.
Well, okay. I know. I kind of hope we don't use it. I would rather just give these dudes that need to get paid some contracts. I think there is some benefit in the security of a long-term contract that would make a guy like Frank maybe take slightly less per year than what Ross was talking about with franchising him 2-3 years in a row. You give him a 4 or 5 year deal, he might be willing to take just slightly less than that. I don't know that it's enough to matter necessarily, but I would much rather sign him to a deal than to franchise him. And speaking to the defensive end market this year, DeMarcus Lawrence is a free agent, Ezekiel Ansah is a free agent, Brandon Graham, Jadeveon Clowney, who is an outside linebacker technically, but he's for all intents and purposes a defensive end.
Does he finish? No.
No, it's just a guy that's out there that you know what I mean. So
that's a lot of dudes. I didn't realize how much is going to be out there. That's awesome.
I do think that Frank Clark is going to be sought after. I think somebody might be willing. He had a great year, and just that. I think there's still kind of that he's from the Seahawks defense. I think that still matters to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I don't. I kind of hope we get through this without even having to worry about considering the franchise tag. So I hope we don't use it.
Boy X Scout saying Clowney is injury prone ? And Birdfinger chiming in saying all these DEs are going to blow up the market. So my thought on it, and this is what I wrote on the forum. So check it out, hawkscast.com. Use the franchise tag ? My concern about it is, do the Seahawks and Frank Clark kind of like tepidly go into contract negotiations, knowing that they can always fall back onto the franchise tag? Like Ross was saying, if you play this out like Kirk Cousins, and you just say, well, I know what I'm going to make if I sign this tag, and I know what I'm going to make next year if I'm still the franchise player, and I know what I'm going to make if you franchise me for a third year. So if that's like the starting point, you're looking at $46 million guaranteed over the first 3 years, and that's like maybe a conservative number.
It's more than that.
It's more than that, but I'm just kind of thinking like what it would take for a player to sign. They probably couldn't ask for like $84 million guaranteed.
Because I don't think you want to go into fully guaranteed contracts. That's the only thing I can think that a player would take to lower his overall number. Because we all know that contracts in the NFL are not real contracts because the team can walk away from it any time.
Right, and that's the thing that
looking at 60 million right now over the next 3 years if he just goes franchise.
Right, and I think that's where you say if that's the negotiation point. Obviously, because he's a defensive end, he's slightly more replaceable than a quarterback, but it's still hard to find a defensive end. That's why they cost so much. I think this market is really going to test things, and I think it's going to allow the Seahawks to really play a really, really slow hand. But my hope is that they can sign him and not use the franchise tag, because I think the franchise tag, every player, if you're not a quarterback, does not like the tag because it's less money than what they could get with no guarantee for next year. It's tough. And I think the last time the Seahawks used a franchise tag, I want to say Olindo Mare. Does that sound about right?
That's embarrassing, but yeah, I mean, like it's not a tool to use a lot.
And I think that's the thing. Like we've talked about it, and we said no one's really worth franchising because you kind of would rather let these guys walk. Palmy Production says history has shown franchise tag and the Seahawks locker room never seems to be a good combo. I mean, I remember when they transition tagged Leroy Hill, no one wanted him. They could have poison pilled him away too. No one wanted him, so we dropped the transition tag, and he ended up signing back with Seattle anyway. But it's weird. I think the franchise tag's a bad thing, and I kind of feel like it's more hurtful to negotiations because teams and players know they can fall back to it rather than saying like, look, let's get our best foot efforts out there. Let's get this deal done. So
the whole construct of like how NFL made it's kind of messed up. I keep waiting for them just to tear it all down and just start all over again. Because like when they put the franchise tag in there originally because like you wanted to let teams be able to keep their wonder guy, but they didn't realize how it was gonna play out, and it was all these ad hoc things that didn't work out in practice. I just like the whole thing just needs to be done over again.
I think a huge part of it is because the money is just so much bigger now. Like when people were playing for $1 million a year, whether they were getting $1 million guaranteed or $800,000 and then a bunch of like roster bonuses, like they didn't really care because it just seems like that wasn't as big of an issue as it is now. Because it's so much more money, you have to really, really look at it a lot harder. So. And
yeah, I mean, players are more business savvy, and teams are more, teams are smarter about the cap, and it's just a different generation. Just gotta, I don't know. I just think the whole system is kind of broken.
It is, and I think that's something that they'll need to kind of clean up. I don't think they're in any jeopardy of having big ramifications, but I think it's going to be better for the sport if they can clean that up and find a better way, because they can't be giving away stupid money to players that don't deserve it. And I think Kirk Cousins is a great example. $84 million guaranteed for 3 years seems like.
Well, that's just like a inertia thing of NFL management. That's also dumb.
Yeah.
But oh well.
All right, well, let's go on to the last topic of the night. So topic number 4, Zeb, I'm going to hit this up with you. Was the season a success?
Yeah, I think it was. I think there was a lot of question marks going into the season. And I think quite a few of those have been, we know what we have now. We know a lot of these younger guys finally got some time to get in there and with the spotlight on them, and we know what they can do. So from that aspect, I think it was a success. Transitioning to some new coaches, I think that was successful. I think we made I think we upgraded at both offensive and defensive coordinator, so that's a success in my opinion. And then just from the fan perspective, the fact that it was a fun season, made the playoffs, he gave us an extra game to watch. Obviously, ultimately, we didn't win the Super Bowl, which is the ultimate success in the NFL, but I think it was a return to enjoyable football. No dark clouds over our heads, watching the guys, getting to know these new guys and watching them have fun and come together as a team. So in my opinion, yes, it's a successful season.
Ross, what about you?
Almost exactly the same. Again, from a fan perspective, it was a lot of fun this year, and I think it was the most fun it's been for a couple of years, really. It was fun watching new players come around, watching other players overperform, and getting back into the playoffs always feels awesome. As a team, yeah, again, if you want to be like technical and hard-ass about it, anytime you don't win the Super Bowl, then technically you didn't meet all your goals.
You failed.
Yeah.
Burn it down. Burn it to the ground.
Second place is no place. You're off the team. No, but I mean, like, you got to feel pretty good about what you are. Like, there was that, even though you didn't want to believe it, there was a little bit of doubt in your mind, right? Sherman was right. Maybe all those guys who left are right. Like, Pete Carroll's lost his way, and we're going to suck, and this is the beginning of the end, or middle of the end, and it's all going to be awful. But, nah, I mean, need some more talent on defense. Probably need, some more offensive line reinforcement, but it kind of looked like more than anything, John Schneider especially had found his way again, not lost his way. So I thought it was a success.
I think it was a lot of success in a lot of different ways. Pretty much echoing everything you both guys have said. All the doubts with losing 6 Pro Bowlers, with the concerns about the locker room, with does the team believe in Russell Wilson, has Pete's philosophy run its edge, can you be a running team in the 2018 NFL? All those things were answered, and I think resoundingly, Seattle, Pete, Russ, the offense, the defense, they showed, like, look, no, we're still here. We're a 10-win team, we're going to scare some teams. And I think that makes it a success. It's disappointing the way they lost, but I would rather take this loss over the way we lost in Atlanta or the way we lost in Carolina, because this was a great team. It was fun to watch. Yeah, it's nerve-wracking, but that's Seahawks football. When you're not chucking the ball up 50 times a game, putting up pinball numbers, it's gonna be nerve-wracking. But it was a really enjoyable season. As much of a pain in the ass that Niners game was, it was still a fun game. I mean, like what they could have done better, and I think that's what I'm excited for next year. The things that they need to improve upon, they're not mind-numbingly huge. They're not insurmountable. It's not finding a quarterback. It's not finding, all these players to fill. It's just saying, like, we need guys that can be healthy and can do this job. And either on the team or those are guys that they can replace. They're not looking for, like, all pros to make them from a 10-win team to a Super Bowl team. Palmer Productions, and he says, definitely was a success. Take everything we went through in the offseason, the losses, the good, the questionable games, etc. Making it as far we did in my book was a success. Birdfinger agrees. Boy X Scout says, they beat KC, a team likely to be in the championship. They didn't win the bowl, but they won some games against better teams. And I think that's what it was. Of all the teams they lost to, the only team that ended up being a bad team this year is maybe Denver and San Francisco, and that's across 16 games. You throw in a playoff game against Dallas, you don't like that you lose, but I don't know how you can't come away and say this wasn't a huge success, especially with how they ended their year last year, because I cannot stand Bruce Arians. I'm so glad he's not in Arizona. He's now in the Bucks, but the fact that we don't have to see his red-faced Kangol hat against the Seahawks twice a year is a huge plus for me, and we finally beat the Arizona Cardinals at home, so huge success, guys.
Yeah, see?
The biggest success. Hugely successful.
Hugely. Bigly.
Cornhusker. What's up, Cornhusker? They're saying it wasn't a success, so maybe you have higher expectations. But yeah, I'm not sure how you can't consider it a success based upon where they came from and what they ended up with. But that's the 2018 season, gentlemen. Final thoughts, final comments.
Just one more prop to Chris Carson. I didn't realize he finished 5th in the league in rushing. That's pretty impressive.
Super impressive.
And another point to show that this was a successful season. Like, we literally fixed the running game. You know what I mean? Like, the last couple of seasons have been terrible. Offensive line has been a problem forever. And so to turn into the best running team in the league, I don't know how I can't even, I don't even know how to explain it. That's like amazing to me. One season turnaround from worst to the best.
Yeah. Ross, final thoughts?
I think I've said it all.
All right. Well, we have our FanTable predictions. Those are all our topics. So we only have a couple predictions. Paul Murray Productions, real quick, says, I was more nervous Carroll's first year with his record-breaking transaction roulette wheel than I think I might have been the year I started taking blood pressure medication. I think you look at what happened with that team and where we are now. I think they're set. They're very much set for what they could be in the future. Birdfinger says maybe without the all-star defense, the Hawks might spend some money on the O-line. I think they've got options at the O-line. They definitely need to find, some health and depth, but I'm pretty happy with where they are. But let's go on to some predictions. So we're going to do another podcast. We're going to do the State of the Seahawks. We might save that for the end of the football season, so we might not talk about the Super Bowl until then. So we're going to go with our first prediction. Who's going to the Super Bowl, Ross?
It's going to be the Eagles.
God, I hope you're wrong.
God, it's going to be the Eagles, and it's going to make us kick ourselves because we're going to be man, the NFC Championship game could have been in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the Eagles, and I think, sadly, it'll probably be the Patriots again. Because I think it's just that time of year.
Sounds like the worst.
Yeah, I know, but it's not my fault, man. That's just how it works.
Boy Scout does not agree with your Eagles assessment, and Cornhusker is apparently a Browns fan and wants us to change over, but I think we're good with where we're at.
I'm pretty sure the Browns are not going to be in it, though. Maybe next year, man. But I'm so surprised the Browns didn't hire Greg Williams back.
I think the Browns had a successful season.
Yeah, they
Cornhusker.
Well, they were like my second
Congrats.
watch by the end of the year. I don't know how they would not bring Greg Williams back. Oh my God, how can you not do that? Oh, well. Anyway, if it's not the Patriots, it'll be Kansas City, and if it's not the Eagles, it'll be the Saints. But I think I'm going with a rematch from last year.
I'm praying for a Saints-Chiefs Super Bowl, and if that is the case, I'm going Saints.
I'm going to steal Birdfinger stole my thunder. He wrote on the chat that it's the St. Chargers. I like the Chargers a lot. I think they're the only road team that has a chance to win this weekend, and I think they're a great matchup for any. They're a great matchup for any team in the AFC. I also think the Saints are the best team. I think they've been the best team for a large portion of the year. I think that they are going to be the favorite. Boy X said, I know that Rivers is 0-9 against the Patriots, and Andrew Luck is 0-6 or 0-5 against the Patriots, but this Patriots team does not look very good. So that's maybe what I'm hoping for. Does Wilson, now that he's made the Pro Bowl, does he win the Pro Bowl MVP finally?
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
I think he's due. He's due. I mean, if anyone's due for a Pro Bowl MVP, it's got to be Wilson.
You're right.
All right, this one should be pretty easy. I'm sure we're all going to agree. Yes or no, the Seahawks get a new special teams coach?
I don't think they will. I think they should, but they're not going to.
Ooh. Brian Schneider's been with the Seahawks for a long time.
I agree with you, but I'm going to disagree with you for this. I think, yes, we get a special teams coach.
I think we have to
got
get a
new-
new special teams coach. Special teams has gone down. I mean, the fact that you have the best punter in the league and you still can't, you can't get your coverage right. That's a problem.
Well, that was his fault a couple times. Like I can remember 2 long run backs this season where he just way outkicked his coverage.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem. I mean, what's your special team doing if that's something you're allowing your rookie punter to do?
True.
And the last prediction for our year is yes or no. Seabass plays his last NFL game.
He has already played his last NFL game. You can't. I'm not sure they're going to be able to reattach his leg. So, yeah, he's done. He's done.
Done.
Stick a fork in him and watch the gin pour out. He's done.
Someone needs to pour some out for Seabass because he's not coming back from that hamstring injury at his age. Maybe if he were like super young, he has a chance. But I mean, Bill Grammatica had essentially the same injury, and he did it off a celebration. I can't remember if he played well after that. I don't know if you guys remember
No, he did not. Oddly enough, that ended both the Grammaticus careers, actually. One of them was injured. The other one just lost it, and they were gone like 2 years later.
Yeah.
They were never the same.
Boy X Scout, Bill Grammatica was a kicker. I can't remember what team he was. I want to say the Bucks.
Yeah.
Yes. And then Martin Grammatica. Well, no, Martin Grammatica was on the Bucks. Bill Grammatica, his brother, I can't remember what team he was on.
Kick for the Cardinals?
I want to say the Cardinals. That makes sense. But yeah, essentially what happened is he kicked a field goal. He made it. He jumped in the air, celebrated, whipped his arms around, and then he landed funny and tore his hamstring.
Yeah. And was never. He was like an All-Pro that year, right? And then after that, it was never the same.
Yeah.
But he really didn't play very long. That's crazy. He was drafted in 2001, played his last game in 2006 for the Tampa Bay Storm of the Arena League.
Automatica, Grammatica, or something like that. Was that what they called him?
Yeah, I think that was more Martine than Bill, though.
Whatever. I don't know. You're really wise in the ways of the Grammatica brothers.
And, gentlemen, that is our 2018 Seahawks FanTable Podcast year. Shout-outs, gentlemen.
Shout-outs to all of those people not getting paid right now on furlough. Hang in there. Especially to the Coast Guard, because, man, they already have, to get treated as, the whatever, the stepchild of the military. Now they're getting it, they're the ones not getting paid. So hang in there, guys. We do appreciate you. That's my shout-out.
Shout-out to there not being a wall.
That's a good shout-out.
Yeah, we don't need that shit.
I want to deal with a fence.
Yeah. I want to give out a shout-out to all the people that chimed into Twitch chat today. Boy X Scout, Birdfinger, Cornhusker, even though you're kind of crazy.
Shout out to Cornhusker.
Palmy Productions, thank you very much for chiming in. Shout out to other people that have chimed about throughout the year. JG, Dr. Dags.
Wait. Before we end this, we got to say we'll be back. We're going to do one at OTAs and one for the draft?
Well, we're going to do one at the end of the season, probably a State of the Seahawks, and then we'll take our hiatus before we get into the draft and OTAs.
Okay. Awesome.
So,
deal.
If you miss us, check us out online at Seahawks FanTable on Facebook. We're also on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast, Seahawks Forum. JG chiming in. What's up, JG? Chiming in at the last minute. But we're online. We want to talk to you. Get on Hawkscast.com. We have a lot of ideas. We're looking for ideas. So if you have comments, if you have ideas you want to talk about, hit us up at Hawkscast.com. We're going to do much to keep this off-season rolling. We're not going to have the podcast every week like we do during the season, but we're going to have some more stuff. So look for that. Maybe some video, maybe some just audio. But, yeah. So I want to give another shout-out to my co-hosts, Zeb and Ross. Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. It's always fun talking Seahawks. And go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.